There's a second one that has the attachment. All right, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock, July the 11th, and I'm going to call the work session of the Mayor and Council to order. We have a rather hefty agenda today. I'm going to do everything I can to create as comprehensive a consent agenda as I can. Obviously, any items on here that require public hearing will have abbreviated discussion here in this meeting, and then those items will be taken over automatically to the regular session. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start this with under tab A, governing body. And the first item up is qualifying for the November 2023 election. The city clerk, Teresa, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So as you all know, we have a general election coming up on November the 7th, and we need for you to host both qualifying and early voting and the voting on election day. So what I have before you is that we will be doing qualifying in the city of Villa Rica Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, August the 21st through the 23rd from 8:30 to 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at City Hall, with 1 hour off for lunch at 12. That will fulfill our requirement from the state for the right amount of time for qualifying. It will actually exceed what the state requires. And then early voting is set up to be 3 weeks ahead of time with 2 Saturdays. Villa Rica will only be hosting the final week, which will be October the 30th through November the 3rd at Powell Park from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so I ask that you approve to host both the qualifying and early voting and the general election at your facilities.
All right, Council, are you able to see these documents? All right, are there any questions for Teresa on this item?
Do we need to include the lunch hour off in the dates here? It's not on the list. I mean,
it's going to be on the posting that goes out in the paper once you approve the dates.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. David, you've taken a look at this. And we're good on all these dates and the requirements?
Yes, we are.
Okay, very good. If there are no objections, I will make this consent item number 1.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, item A2, the adoption of the pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes agreement related to Walton Communities project with the Villa Rica Housing Authority. Is that you, Mr. Mecklin?
It is. This is a proposed agreement with the Housing Authority. You've already approved this agreement as it relates to phase 1 of the project. This particular agreement deals with phase 2. So you have some idea as to the product that they're going to produce for the city. Similar in every regard. It just adds in a number of new apartments that are going to be built.
All right. Council, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Mecklin on this item? All right. This project's been ongoing and continuously comes before us with updates. So if there are no objections, I'm going to make this consent number 2. All right, moving on to A3, abandonment and transfer of Walnut Drive to the Villa Rica Housing Authority. Mr. Mecklin.
As a part of the construction of the new units at Walton Trails Phase 2, we've been asked to abandon and donate or to allow the Housing Authority to use what is an existing city street called Walnut Drive. If you actually drive out there, it looks like it's a part of the apartment complex already, but nevertheless, it is officially still a city street. Interestingly enough, the county tax assessor has already converted this from a city street into a part of the apartment complex, and so what we're doing is really just making this official. It abandons everything up to a point where the pharmacy is on the corner, I believe, with Highway 61, so that the public road will still remain so that you can enter into the pharmacy on a public road. I've been told that they may come back to us and ask that too be abandoned, but we haven't had any contact with the owner of the pharmacy yet, so that's not on the table tonight.
Okay, and this has always been a part of that project as it phased out the old housing projects.
Right.
So, council, does anyone have any questions on this item? All right, if there are none, are there any objections to making this consent number 3?
Nope.
All right, let's move on to A4. This is the settlement of the opioid litigation with Publix Corporation. Mr. Macklin.
This is a continuation of our participation with the group of cities and counties in Georgia related to opioid litigation. Our attorneys are settling the cases, essentially not one by one, but seemingly sometimes one by one. They've entered into a settlement agreement with the Publix Corporation, who is willing to pay in a sum of money as their part of the settlement of the opioid litigation. And this agreement allows us to get our share of that. So I would ask that you approve it.
All right, council, any questions for David on this item?
Yeah, what
Mr.
is our
Mac-
share,
Mr.
do you
Carter.
know?
It's a fairly tiny share. I can't tell you the specific percentage of it, but it is some money that we receive. It's a very small share because
Pocket
our
share.
share compared to the city of Atlanta or Fulton County is just necessarily going to be small.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? All right, are there any objections to making this consent number 4? All right, let's move on to A5, the second reading home rule ordinance providing for board and commission terms. Mr. Macklin.
This is the ordinance that you had a first reading of and approved back in May. And what this does is essentially just sets a uniform termination date for all members of boards and commissions in the city. Makes it a part of our city charter.
Except,
Yeah, I can't remember what the
Planning and
exception may be.
zoning.
Planning and zoning, I think, is timed differently. But everybody else, library boards, recreation boards, all of those will expire on December 31st of each year.
I just wanted to make that clarification because I think there is still a question with regard to those terms that may be taken up later in
Right.
this meeting or a subsequent meeting. All right, council, does anyone have any questions for David on this
I would-
item?
I would say that this should not be part of the consent agenda because I think it needs to be a standalone item since it is a charter change.
All right, so we'll carry that over. Are there any questions for David on this item? All right, so Madam Clerk, we'll take this one over to the regular session. All right, A6, approval of the intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County for the East Side TAD. Mr. Macklin.
There's really two parts to this. One is the approval of the intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County, which Carroll County voted on, I believe, last Thursday and approved the draft agreement that should have been sent, that was sent to you. As you're aware, the county, we negotiated with the county months ago and were not able to reach an agreement with them. Subsequent to our agreement with the county school board, we did re-engage with the county and entered into an agreement very similar in form and nature to the one that we had with the school board, whereby the county of Carroll will become a part of our East Side TAD and contribute their portion of the tax revenues towards the TAD fund. So that's part number one. Part number two is that there was an agreement with them with regard to the construction of the Carroll County Fire Department, a new facility here, and you should have that also, that would tell you what the city has agreed to do in exchange for getting that fire station built here.
Okay. I think, Mr. Carter, did you get your questions answered with regard to the attachments for this item?
Yeah, the exhibits called out are 1 and 2, and it didn't really specify which was which. Which one?
I think number 1 is the agreement with the county. Number 2 is the fire station.
Okay, all right, they're called something else in here, but all right, I read that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions on this item? Can this be,
I
you feel?
think that could be a consent item if you choose to make it.
Well, I would like to get as much on the consent agenda as I can because I'm leaving enough space for public tonight. So are there any objections to making this consent number 5? Okay. Let's move on to community development. B1. This is Glory Business LLC doing business as Smile Food Mart alcohol license permit request. There'll also be a public hearing on this item, so we're just going to introduce it here. And I'll recognize Ms. Nairi Simpson. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Wonderful.
Alrighty. So, Mr. Mayor and Council, good afternoon.
Pull that mic a little bit.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. This application is presented for consideration of issuance of an alcohol license permit to Glory Business LLC, DBA Smile Food Mart, change of ownership, basically. The background of this location is it has historically, customarily, for the past 10 years or so, 10 years at least, have allowed operations for convenience store, gas station, and again, it's just a change of ownership request.
Clarify for us where that location is.
It's across from, what's the, Collins, Mr. Collins.
Oh,
Yeah.
formerly known as the Carroll Road Shopette, or
Yes,
is it
exactly.
still known as the Carroll Road Shopette?
No, they're
All right.
changing it.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions on this item? Okay. We're going to take it to public hearing tonight anyway, so let's move on to B2. Sequoia Golf Mirror Lake LLC doing business as Mirror Lake Golf Club, alcohol license permit, agent change request.
Yes.
This item will also have a public hearing, so it'll go over as well, but go ahead, Nairi.
Now, for this one, according to ordinance, from my understanding, there's no public hearing. Because this is a change of name they've undergone staffing changes.
Mr. Mecklin? So anytime it indicates a public hearing on the agenda, that is an indication that it is required. So when
Okay.
you submit this, if a public hearing is not required, you should not put that on.
I did submit it as a no.
Okay. It's okay. Thank you. Just clarifying that. So, Mr.
I
Mecklin?
think you're good without a public hearing on that.
Okay, so this item will not have a public hearing necessarily. Let's see what the council says. Go ahead and
Okay.
present the item, and then we'll take it up.
Okay, basically, it's a change of request to add Todd Jameson Mayer as the new agent. So basically, the new contact person for the alcohol license permit. Again, they have undergone staff changes. And originally, they didn't have anyone named, and then they brought Mr. Mayer on board, and they wanted him to be the designee. Like if we have events or contact information, he has submitted himself for a background check. He's passed the background check. Again, there was no requirement to post in the Times Georgian according to ordinance standards, so we're just
Okay.
here to have
So this
his name
is just
added.
a name change, but he submitted the appropriate background request.
That is
We've
correct.
approved that here. Okay. Council, do you have any questions? All right, if there are no questions, is there any objection to making this consent number 6? All right, very good. Let's move on to B3. This is RA-01-23, Punkintown Road and at Highway 61, rezoning from AG to C2 and SFA. So from AG to commercial 2 and single family attached. Ron.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Our pit, this is a continuation of an existing item that we had on our last agenda. This is RA-01-23. This is the Pumpkintown Road and Dallas Highway, 45 acres. They're looking to rezone this one. It's 13 parcels from AG to C1 and SFA, looking to put up 120 units of 55 and up townhomes and a neighborhood commercial development. So the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 4-0 to deny the application. Staff is recommending approval with conditions, as shown on the cover sheet.
Okay, so this item is a carryover from May. It was a tabled item. I'm going to ask Mr. Macklin to weigh in on this one just for a minute so that we can get some structure on this item, as it is a tabled item from May.
Correct. And, I recall and have gone back and looked at the minutes of the May meeting and was asked at the time if the council tabled it, would it require further notice and public hearing? I think my opinion at that time, which continues to be my opinion, is that it is not required, that you do not have to have another public hearing, nor did we have to advertise it again for this meeting to bring it off the table, if the council chooses to bring it off the table. That being said, because the state law only requires us to hold one public hearing on any rezoning request, we always routinely hold two, one at the planning and zoning and one at the council. So you're not required to have a public hearing. I do know that this particular rezoning has a lot of public interest, however, and if you choose, if there's a choice for the council to make inquiries to the developer or to engage with anybody in the audience rather than just debating amongst yourselves, it would make some sense to allow some type of limited form of public hearing in the matter. And I think it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend another 2 to 3 hours on this particular matter since you've already heard it before. But if you choose to engage with the developer to ask questions, then I think it would be fair to allow the public to have some input, further input into it also. So if you're going to choose to do that, I would think you need to establish some parameters to limit the public hearing.
Okay, so I wanted you to say that, to make that clear. That was part of your memo that you had distributed to staff and to myself and the council, the other council members. And we have not had an opportunity to talk about it because we are prohibited from having discussions outside of this room apart from one-on-one. So there's been no discussion until now. So I think there are two questions that we need to ask ourselves here in this discussion. One, do we need more information from the developer in order to make a decision? And then if the answer to that is yes, then we should discuss or be prepared to discuss what the parameters would be for seeking additional public hearing. Is that
That's a
clear?
fair statement, yes.
Okay. So just among the council, is there a need to have more presentation from the developer and such that we would need to open this back up separately tonight? Let me say that even if that need doesn't exist with anyone, there would still be ample time for public input through the regular order of public comments, which allows for 3 minutes for each person who wishes to get up and speak at the beginning of the meeting tonight, and also 3 minutes at the end of this meeting. So there will be plenty of time for the public to be able to give input, even if we did not open up some limited form of additional public hearing this evening. I really don't take issue either way. I just want to know if the council believes that we need more input from the developer side, such that we would need to open this again.
Would there be any new developments or any new ideas that they would like
Ron,
to present?
is there
to us?
any significant updates, material updates to the, or Mr. Macklin, you want to weigh in on that? Because I don't know.
I can weigh in, but my answer is a quick I don't know.
Okay.
I know Ron,
Okay.
Ron got some new plans, but
That's fair, because from time to time, we get additional information. In fact,
Right.
on at least 3 of these items here, we've gotten additional information as late as today.
correct.
It just happens. I mean, as things get updated. But Ron, let me let you
Sure.
answer that.
Yeah, so we did receive yesterday new townhouse elevation drawings in addition to a slightly updated site plan document. The update that I was able to quickly see was really related to the open space that I saw in the middle. It looked a little bit different as far as walkways and things like that. I'm sure there's probably some other really minor things on there, but as far as the number of units, as far as that stuff is all the same.
Now, I think at one time the number of units exceeded 100. Is that correct? But now it's 99.
Let's see.
And that's not a recent change. That change occurred some weeks back.
Let me see what I have here, if you don't mind. I just want to double check before I say yes. Yeah, can you pull that up for me, please?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
so on the site plan that was submitted via email and is now in our packet, there are 3 site notes which I noticed those are not part of the conditions that are included in the cover sheet. And so my concern is I would like to, I don't know if I need to ask the developer to confirm that he agrees with those site conditions. And if that then opens the door to whether we need to have a public hearing. I think I've discussed with Mr. Mecklin that privately, and he indicated, not to put words in his mouth, that may open the door to needing an additional public hearing. So as a precaution, I would just want to make sure that was.
Yeah, and I'm leaning toward doing that anyway. But those particular conditions, are staff aware of those conditions? Has that been broached prior to this setting?
This is the first time that I've seen them were in the email. They're attached on the site plan that Ron sent us yesterday, and they're in our packet now. But they're not in the cover sheet per se.
Okay.
So
Let's stop right there. So
Okay.
to me, I'm satisfied that you're going to need to have some reopening of the public hearing this evening. So I want you to be prepared, David. I'm assuming that we cannot take any action here because that requires votes. So I want the council members to be prepared of how we would structure this reopening. Please take a look at the memorandum supplied by the city attorney, and this evening be prepared to reopen a limited public hearing on this item. Okay, and whatever those conditions are, I would ask that you communicate that with staff between these 2 meetings so that can be looked at. So maybe it doesn't have to be taken up in the regular meeting, and hopefully you can get the answer to that question, even though we still will have a limited reopening of this public hearing. Okay, does anybody have any questions that they need to get answered now before we move on, knowing that we're going to take this over? Okay, so Madam Clerk, we'll take this over into the regular meeting tonight. All right, let's move on to B4, which is RA-02-23, Rockmart Road at Lake Paradise Road. This is a rezoning from I-2 to C1. This item also requires a public hearing. So Ron, I'll ask you to briefly introduce this item.
Sure. So this is another application from Arpit Realty LLC, changing from an industrial I-2 zone to commercial low-density C1 in order to construct a liquor store on the parcel. So the Planning Commission voted 3-1 to approve the application. That was with the staff conditions. Staff is also recommending approval with condition, and the only condition is just that the applicant would agree that any zoning approval is not an implied consent to receive a liquor license, and that's a separate application process.
All right, very good. Council, do you have any questions for Ron here, knowing that this will go into a public hearing tonight? Okay. Madam Clerk, we'll take this item over. Let's move on to B6, RA-06-22, 1739 Carrollton Villarica Highway. This is a rezoning from AG to SFA.
I think we skipped one.
Did I skip one? All right, well, let's take it out of order. Let's go ahead and do that one, Ron.
All right.
And I'll go back to 5. I apologize. Go ahead.
Yep, so this one is coming back to us. This was one that we reverted back to the Planning Commission, I believe, at our May meeting, the last meeting. But this is an application from Highlands Residential LLC. They're seeking a rezoning from AG to a SFA zone. It's a 67-acre parcel, and they're looking to do 55 and up townhomes. It's total 252 units. The applicant is proposing to do an on-site drip field for their sewage, and they won't be actually connected to the city sewer system. So the staff is recommending approval with conditions. The Planning Commission also recommended approval with conditions, the same conditions here. And those conditions are to have the community listed as an age-restricted community in compliance with the 1995 HOPA Act. The deed restriction must be filed within 30 days of the final plat. Number 2, the application package shall be entered into the legal record in addition to any and all proposed elevations, site plans, and concept plans, other representations made before the city council. And 3rd, that it would be fully transferable, all the conditions and stipulations.
Okay. Please help us orient where this is, if you would.
Yes, sir. So this is a lot that's directly west and directly south. It wraps around the V-Plex complex. So this is, it borders South Van Wert Road and Highway 61.
Tom's shaking his head no, so obviously that means I'm going to call on him.
Well, the plan,
Pull your mic down.
the parcel,
Can't hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Your mic? You don't have anything to...
the development, I think the intent of the development is to get back to Van Wert through the Talbot property and the property adjacent there to where Elisa used to live.
Yeah, no, I know. I wanted
Right.
everyone else to be aware of exactly where it is, but they had a disagreement of where it was, so I thought I would explore that a minute. Okay, this is going to have a public hearing tonight, but does anybody have any questions for Ron? Okay. Madam Clerk, we'll take this over to the regular, and let me go back and get B5. That is VA-03-23, 113 Connors Road. 2 variances from Table 4.4, Development Standards, and Section 8.02 2J1, off-street motor vehicle parking and loading areas. This item requires a public hearing, so it will be taken over into the regular meeting. Go ahead, Ron.
Yes, sir. So this applicant, Brandon Greba, he's the owner of the of 113 Connors Road. This is the commonly known as the Cornhole site on Connors Road. He's looking to, he installed a carport on the property, which carports aren't permitted for commercial zones, only for residential zones. So he's looking for a variance from that section of the ordinance, in addition to the location where he placed the carport is not compliant with our ordinance. So he placed the carport 4 feet from the primary structure. We require 10 feet, and 5.5 feet from the rear yard property line, where we require 15 feet. So he's looking for the variances from all of those. Staff is recommending denial for all of the variances. This actually arose out of code enforcement action that came about when they noticed the carport being under construction.
Okay. So, council, do you have any questions for Ron, knowing that this is going to have a public hearing tonight? All right.
I'll say my question
Miss,
for tonight.
okay. All right, she's
But
going
tonight, well, I can do it. You're doing this, he's already done it.
Yes, he has.
So, if in the event that it is passed, don't you think there would be certain presidents considering this building over here on Dogwood and Candler, what he put up this big building and it wasn't in compliance? So then if you go and you let that go, so if you let this go, then who's to say somebody else won't do something? And then you can't, you wouldn't have a reason to say no if you're gonna let these two pass. That's my question.
Well, you don't have to answer that.
You don't
Ron.
have to
I mean,
answer. I know you can answer tonight.
she's
That
really
was my
I
concern.
was trying to drum up. Okay.
Yeah, she's
No,
really
no.
just raising a consideration, but staff has already
Understand that.
recommended denial, so there's
Okay,
really not a
okay.
position for
All
you to respond to. But I understand exactly what she's saying. Okay, so that item will go over. Let's go to B7, C1-01-23, West Industrial Court at Highway 101. This is a special exception permit to operate a truck and trailer parking facility. This item will require a public hearing. Ron?
Yes, so Dr. Ailu has requested a special exception permit in order to operate this truck parking lot. I've gone a little bit back and forth here with the applicant, but his intent appears to be to lease out the lot for monthly parking for trucks and trailers. So our current zoning ordinance, and what he's actually applying for is a special exception for a public and private parking lot, which is what we consider that type of a use, being that that's the primary use on the property. So our ordinance does not allow for trailer parking, so he's aware of that. The applicant and will be coming back for a variance from that, but as of right now, he's just looking for a special exception permit to operate a truck parking lot. So the staff is recommending denial for the special use exception.
Okay, and so because you're recommending denial, I'm assuming that you did not draft up any conditions if there were to be a,
I didn't,
Okay.
but I can if that's the.
just, no, I mean, I'll take it like that.
Okay.
Okay, this item has a public hearing, so does anyone have any questions at this stage? Okay, we'll take this item over, as well. Let's go to B8, RA-03-23, East Wilson Street. This is a rezoning from CMU to R2, which is commercial mixed use, to residential 2. This item also requires a public hearing. Ron?
The applicant, Marlon and Tasha Wells, would like to construct 2 homes on these 2 parcels. They're looking to reorient them. They're currently facing East Wilson Street, but they're looking to turn them to face Thomas Dorsey Drive and construct 2 homes for their adult children, being that it's a tough housing market right now. And they also own the house that's next door as well, where they currently live, so they would all live together. So the staff is recommending approval. The Planning Commission also recommended 5-0 approval as well. No conditions.
No conditions, okay. Council, do you have any questions on this item?
So it would be considered Thomas Dorsey, not East Wilson. Is that what
I
you're
think the
saying?
new mailing address will probably be Thomas Dorsey. So the way that they're oriented now is East Wilson, but there's no addresses since there's nothing there. Yeah.
All right, anybody else? All right, this item will go over. Let's see where we're at now. Ron, you are still
minute.
working. All
I'm
right,
still
Mr.
here.
Carter.
Okay, I'm looking at the site plan. These things are at the corner and the one next to it. But you say they both are gonna have driveways onto Thomas Dorsey?
Well, they're both going to face Thomas Dorsey. We don't know where the driveways will be located yet until we get housing plans in. So, for example, the house that's actually going to be on the corner, because there's going to be one that's an interior lot, that one very well can have a side garage, for example. There would still
I
be a
can see
distance
that one. I can't
requirement.
see the second one.
Well, they're gonna
going to Thomas
cut the
Dorsey.
lot. They're gonna change how so the 2 lots, they're actually gonna change their shape and turn them. So
Okay.
they'll be long.
Mhm.
I see what you're saying.
Yep. Okay. Ron, so here we go. 9, VA-05-23. This is 384 Mirror Lake Boulevard. This is a variance to reduce the side yard setback. This item also has a public hearing.
Yes.
We're gonna be here all night.
This,
Be
so this
prepared.
was a project application from Fuqua Development. This is for one of their out parcel sites. So this out parcel is for a proposed Mavis Tire and Brakes Auto Repair business, and they're looking to reduce the required 30-foot side yard setback to 10 feet in the C2 zone. So the staff is recommending approval for this variance, no conditions.
All right, this item also has a public hearing. Council, you have any questions?
Just
Mr. Carter?
one. This looks like this is part of the Fuqua project. Is that what it is?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
All right, anybody else? All right, this item will go over. Number 10, VA-04-23. This is 924 Carrollton Villarica Highway. This is a variance to permit gravel parking. This item also has a public hearing. Go ahead, Ron.
So we're actually going to request for this item to be moved to the next agenda at request of the applicant, being that the notice has been bad. We got word that from the newspaper that the notice is bad.
Okay, so David, since he's having a noticing question, is it appropriate to move it here or to take it over and move it officially? Since they're having to start over, I don't see a problem with just moving it here.
I think that's right.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you'll take this item over to the August regular council meeting. All right, let's go to number 11. Amendment to Section 2, Administration of the City of Villarica Zoning Code. This also has a public hearing. This has been moving around for a little while, right?
Yeah,
Several
I think
months.
I initially submitted this in February of this year. But the staff is looking to withdraw the item because we have a much more comprehensive Section 2 that's going to incorporate Mr. Carter's comments that he had earlier, I believe, at that time. And I think that we've been working with the city manager or city attorney on that as well. So we're ready to make those changes, but they're still caught up right now in the planning commission process.
So you just want to move this on out to August? Will you be ready by August?
Well, I was hoping that I could have withdrawn this one so I could have
A new one?
a newer, a much bigger and much more comprehensive one, along with some other ordinance changes in other sections. So it would be a little bit more comprehensive.
Sure.
I think you can just withdraw that.
Right
Just
here?
take it off, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Madam Clerk, if you'll take that off. All right, let's go to number 12. And I appreciate you doing that. And I know that there's been a lot of work going into this. And I know Mr. Carter has wrestled with this. I thought we had it, but that was what I was referring to earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go to number 12. ALT-01-22. Liberty Point subdivision, alteration to PUD, and adoption of a new concept plan. This item also has a public hearing. But Ron, go ahead.
Sure. So this is an alteration of an existing PUD that was started in 2006 in the city that is gearing towards a closeout. And Liberty Custom Homes, LLC, the applicant, is looking to adopt a new concept plan, being that the existing concept plan is not reflective of what the developer has actually done out on the property. So the staff has added quite a number of attachments to your packets here. There's about 40 of them. And we did a zoning audit as well on the property sometime last year and found several deficiencies in planning and zoning requirements that we have in the city, in addition to some state requirements or regional commission requirements that were supposed to be completed as well. So the Planning Commission has voted 5-0 to approve the application with the staff outlined condition that's shown on your cover sheet there. So there's only one condition that we're recommending approval for, and that's just that the alteration shall be binding upon a fully executed revised development agreement that is to be submitted along with the final plat application. The attached master plan document shall regulate the conclusion of the development. So the staff did come up with a proposed master plan document and tried to work with the applicant on that as well. And that's what we're proposing to move forward in order for them to build out that fifth phase.
Well, let me get some clarification then. I have looked at this before, and it sounded to me like you just indicated you had one condition, but the last time I looked at this, there were multiple conditions. Has that changed? Because I think that's also what went to P&Z.
Yeah, so it's a little bit loaded. The condition, this is the condition that actually went to the P&Z, but it's a little bit of a loaded condition, being that it's an entire several-page master plan document.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I won't belabor that because I had already decided I wasn't going to have you read that. That was quite extensive. So, Council, do you have any questions for Ron at this stage? Knowing this item, we'll go over to regular session for a public hearing. Ms.
The
Marchman.
amenities that they were gonna do earlier, are they gonna be included in this new thing here?
No, just the amenities that have been constructed out there. In addition to, we have a proposed trailhead as well that we're proposing for them to build out, bicycle racks and things of that nature as well to make it a more wholesome development.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. We'll take this over to the regular session.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead. Do you have this next one? No, this is probably Tracy. Okay. Although his name's not on here.
That's not Tracy.
All right, number 13, and it's not Tracy either. It's Nick. All right, structural inspection of 315 Main Street, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. Go ahead, Nick.
All right, thank you. This item is pertaining to engaging, or the city staff would like to engage with a structural engineer company to come and assess the building. Upon visual inspection, you can, from the street even, the city staff is concerned that the brick lintel over the front of the facade and the brick is actually going to fall over and come, possibly injure a civilian that may be walking on the sidewalk. And there's also a wall on the side of the building that we're concerned with that's adjacent to a city-owned Prospector Park. City staff reached out to Texas structural engineers. They have agreed to come and inspect this facility, the structure, the foundation, all vital parts of an actual building, and then they would provide us a report with recommendations and or concerns, along with photos and a complete assessment by a licensed practicing engineer that will sign and seal the report. So city staff is asking permission to engage with this company for $1,750 to perform this assessment and inspection.
And where's this structure?
Are you familiar with Prospector Park? It's the building right beside it.
Oh, what used to be James?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on this item? This is to approve an engineering firm for $1,750 to come out and give us a second opinion about the soundness of the structure there. We internally have concerns, but we just want to get a third party to take a look at this and make sure that we're right in our assessment, that they agree with us. Does anybody have any objections to me making this consent number, where am I at? Consent number 7. Okay, that'll be consent number 7. Thank you, Nick. All right, tab C, economic development. C1, appointment of 2 new members to the Downtown Development Authority.
Good
Alyssa
afternoon.
Doyle. Hello.
Hello. Okay, this is the request to appoint 2 new members to the Downtown Development Authority. Can you pull that down? Okay, the DDA currently has 2 vacancies, and after advertising that there are 2 vacancies, I received applications from Michael Rickman and Barbara Daniel. Michael Rickman owns Rickman Architect and Design, located 224 West Montgomery, so he owns a business in downtown. He also serves on our Economic Vitality Committee, Main Street. Barbara Daniel is a city resident and was employed by the city as a Main Street manager, tourism manager, and city clerk. The DDA met in May and all agree on the appointment of Michael Rickman and Barbara Daniel to the board. So staff recommends the appointment of Michael Rickman and Barbara Daniel to the Downtown Development Authority, both serving a 4-year term from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2027.
Okay, are these the only 2 applications you received?
That's the only 2 that I received.
Okay.
However, after the DDA made their selection, I did receive another one, so I'm holding on to that application.
In case there's another vacancy?
Yes,
Okay.
he actually owns a few buildings downtown.
All right, so is there any questions?
I got one.
All right, Mr. Carter.
Okay, David, this timeline, July to June, that's going to conflict with the change that we're making, is it not?
Well, once you pass the charter change earlier, then yes, that's going to change those dates. So that their terms will expire on December 30th, December 31st of whatever year they expire on.
But that won't occur until tonight.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any reason to change this. It's going to happen automatically.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. I know he had a question.
He did.
But okay, so let me do this. Is there any objection to making this consent number 8 and adding the names Barbara Daniel and Michael Rickman?
No.
All right, consent number 8, Madam Clerk, make that change. All right, C2, reappointment of Michael Young to the Downtown Development Authority.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Michael Young is currently serving on the DDA, and his term expired on June 30th, 2023, and hasn't expressed an interest to be reappointed. So the DDA members met in June and are in consensus with Michael Young serving another term. And my records show that he's been serving on the DDA since January 2019, and of course you all know he was on the city council and has served on various city boards. So staff recommends the reappointment of Michael Young to the Downtown Development Authority to serve a 4-year term, July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2027.
All right, wonderful. Is there any objection to making this consent number 9? Any objection from the audience? Well, she said he's apparently expressed an interest.
You're gonna have to find another chairman.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. His term expired right after they appointed him chair.
That's-
So let's not get rid of him.
That's more work. We'll hold off on that. All right, thank you, Alyssa. All right, D, Human Resources. Ms. Lena Taylor. Item 1, approve the workers' compensation renewal. Oh, and it's going to be Tiffany. Y'all keep tricking me.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Hello.
I'm here to present the workers' comp renewal with Bitco. Provided a summary of the current year next to the previous year rates. Most carriers have been shying away from accounts with full police forces, and Bitco is still one of the leading carriers and continuing to underwrite us. Even with the increase in our payroll, our overall premium and rates are down from $170,531 to $154,881. So we have a savings of $15,650. Staff recommends the approval of this renewal.
All right, Council, does anyone have any questions for Tiffany?
Just-
Mr. Carter.
I'm looking at these two charts and where the values are dropping. What do those numbers represent?
Can I defer to Libby? We have Libby Willingham here.
Expiring,
Wonderful.
it's a class
Bring her on
rate.
up.
It's called a class rate.
Yes, they're workers' comp codes that we use for the employees. So based on what their job is the category that they go into, and then they have specific
Why
rates.
are they decreasing? That was my
Oh, I'm
curiosity.
sorry. I'll let Libby answer that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Grab that mic there.
Okay. Yes, the Bitco specializes in writing municipalities, and across the board, due to the things they have done, plus the National Council on Compensation Insurance, work comp rates have been steadily dropping. It's one of the few where they're still making money, and so it's just they have assigned those new rates. And the good thing about about your city in particular is the staff has done such a great job that those are the beginning rates that Bitco has assigned to you, and then they have also added some additional credits to offset those increases in payrolls to keep your premiums down. So, but those rates are assigned based on loss cost multipliers that National Council on Compensation puts out, and then Bitco based on how profitable they are, they will assign, they will apply some credits to that for certain rates. And the municipalities who, deserve those rates, they get those lower rates.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Mr. Carter's not complaining that the rates are going down. He's just surprised that they're going down.
Well, I'll just say that
Nothing's been going down.
Well, yeah, I was a little surprised, and happily so. And your team here is doing a wonderful job in keeping your people safe. So
We appreciate
kudos.
that. Thank you.
I wanted to hear
anybody
that too.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Are there any objections to making this consent number 10? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. All right, let's go to tab E, Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services. Ms. Tracy Ivy. Item 1, July is Parks and Recreation Month.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we did this last year, and we are back again to ask, we're presenting a proclamation supporting the city's participation in National Recreation and Park Association Park and Recreation Month for the whole month of July. Since 1985, people in the United States have celebrated Park and Recreation Month in the month of July to recognize the more than 160,000 full-time part and full-time recreation professionals. And we want to recognize the city of Villa Rica's efforts, and we also want to celebrate those in other recreation departments across the country. So we're here to present a proclamation for your approval.
All right, wonderful. Will you make sure we have a copy of that for tonight? Is there any, is there a motion on this? Yeah. Is there any objection to making this consent number 11?
No.
All right, E2, Recreation Advisory Commission appointment. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yes, I have one applicant that I would like to add to our advisory commission. Her name is Sharon Giannuzzi. She's a resident of Villa Rica, been here almost 4 years, a little over 3.5 years. She's self-employed, so has a lot of free time on her hands to go out and help us generate some support for our art and visual arts programs. We don't have a whole lot of that right now, so we want to tap into her knowledge and her expertise and hopefully go in that direction. So we think she'll be a good addition to our commission.
Wonderful. I'm glad you said the name, because if I'd tried that, I might not have made it. Any questions for Tracy on this appointment? All right. Any objection to making that consent number 12? All right, let's go. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Tab F, Police. Item 1, purchase 2 flock cameras. Who is this? Captain Shaddix. Good evening, sir, or afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Go ahead.
So you know that we currently have 10 flock cameras in the city. We're currently using those. In the past year, just give you an estimate or an idea of how they benefit the city. In the past year, we've recovered $233,000 in property. Now, as of the time that this was prepared a couple weeks ago, since then, I can add another $750 and 2 more arrests.
Oh, that's good.
So it's a continuing thing. So they've been a really good aid for investigations and tracking down criminals, but they're also good at locating missing persons. We've just recently located a missing person using this. So it really does come in handy.
Would you, just to interrupt just for a second, would
Yes,
you just
sir.
take just a minute to explain what these flock cameras are? I know we know, but not everybody does, and since a lot of people watch this, let's
Yes, sir.
take just a minute to talk about
So
that.
cameras along the roadways, and what they do is they capture the tags of the vehicles and a quick photo of the vehicle. So this most recent case that we had, it was a person that stole packages where UPS or a FedEx, one of those, had delivered packages to a business, and the business was closed at the time, so they dropped them at the door. The delivery service drove off, and then a suspect drove in with his car, gets out those packages in his SUV, and drives off with them. The owner's notified that the packages were delivered. When he gets there, they're not, and he watches his camera, and you see this. His camera picks up a pretty good shot of the suspect and his vehicle, but you can't see the tag. What we can do is we can look for other things on the vehicle that might be identified, and we can put this in the computer, and the computer actually searches all the flock cameras. I'm sorry, I talk with my hands a lot, sir.
Yeah, me too.
We can put this in the computer, so the computer actually searches for vehicles with, if it's damage or stickers or something on the vehicle, and then it gives us all the vehicles matching that description with something like that on it. Then we can compare that with our video and go up this, and that's what we did this one. There was specific decals on the vehicle in the exact same spot, and we were identified. And when we went to the home and knocked on the door, the person opened the door. That's the guy that was on camera.
Wow.
So it was. Wow. We were able to recover that property and get it back, and we made an arrest off of it.
Sure.
So these are very valuable. They also notice when people pass by one, if they got warrants outstanding, it alerts the officer, so that the officer then can be alerted of that. But they're not just making a stop on some violation and not realize that the person they're stopping has actually got warrants out on him.
Understood.
So a little bit of a heads up.
So this is a little bit of Big Brother really is watching, but he's really trying to catch something that you've already done.
It is. It's not something
this is
where
not
it's not
looking
something
for-
where we look at. Nor do we have the time to look for. Let's put somebody's tag in and see where all they went. We don't do that. There's no time for that. And Sergeant Feely and I both watch this very careful to make sure that there's no officers that abuse it. So
Wonderful.
we're looking at how the searches are done. That is reviewed.
Good.
What we're asking for in this case is to purchase 2 more. We have a contract coming up that has to be signed by August 18th to lock us in on the current price. If we wait till after August 18th, then the price goes up, and there is a yearly maintenance fee for these cameras. So we're wanting to do it under the lower price and save the city money, but we'd like to purchase 2 cameras now.
Okay.
One of those we want to be another fixed camera, will be in a certain location, and then we're actually asking to buy a movable or a portable camera. They cost a little bit more, and there's a little bit higher. I think it's another $500 a year extra for the maintenance on it. But that will allow us to move it to where places where we're having a cluster of crimes, we can actually move it to the locations to help solve those crimes and bring those to an end.
Good. Okay.
The money that would be used to buy these or to purchase these 2 cameras now, we actually have some money left over in our training fund line item. I've talked to Jennifer, we'd like to move that from that line item over to use it to buy these 2 flock cameras.
Is Jennifer behind you? She's hidden back there.
Yeah,
All right, I forgot we moved them back there today. Okay, Council, do you have any questions for the captain on this? Okay, so is there any objection to making this consent number 13? All right, so F2 is grant for 5 flock cameras.
Again,
Go
we're
ahead.
looking. I put these on 2 separate because one, we're using funds that we have in the budget that they were underused to move those. This is a little bit different. We've applied for a grant. The grant's for $15,000. The cost of this project, the initial cost would be $15,750. There would be a $750 over what the grant's given us. What we're asking for is that if the grant's approved prior to August 18th, where we can get it under this contract, to use this money to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if the grant is not approved or we don't get the grant approved before that, then we won't make the purchase.
When is that grant due? When is the application due?
The application we've already made the application for it. We're hoping to hear something back. We've been told there's a pretty quick turnaround, but I don't have a definite date yet of a deadline to respond to it.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions for the captain on this item? Is there any objection to making it consent number 14? All right, let's do F3, police K9. Go ahead, Captain.
I'm actually gonna let
the chief?
do that.
Come on up here. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
He is, and I don't know what this one is actually on this
Good
K9.
afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Hello.
So, last year, we retired our K9 because of age, and we have been without a K9 since then. We have the money in the budget, have had the money in the budget for the last year or so. We are asking now to be able to purchase the K9 with the training from Elite or AREIT, and they are well-known, well-respected. Carrollton recently used them for K9. Everything's worked out great with them. It also includes a 12-week handler course for the officer and continuing education and training for 1 year after we get the dog. They also guarantee the dog will be free of any health effects or anything like that. If that does happen, they will replace the dog.
Has the handler been identified?
Yes, sir. The handler is the gentleman that will be doing the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Oh, really?
For the council meeting.
Interesting. All right.
And we did that intentionally so y'all could meet him.
I think that's great. Okay, I got it. Stephen Elinas. He's been with us a little bit.
Elinas.
Elinas.
Yes.
And I think I mispronounced it the last time, too.
Yes. That's okay. People still call me Mansour. It's
They
okay.
do. I heard somebody do that the other day.
Yes.
But not me, Chief. Okay, is there any question for the chief on this item? I'm glad we're doing this again. All right, any objection to making it consent number 15?
No.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, let's go to G1. John Bain. West Plant Control Module Replacement. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This request is to engage with Zao Technology for the replacement of the West Plant influent pump station control module. All of the flows to the West Plant go through the influent pump station through one of 3 100 horsepower pumps. The control modules for each of these pumps help us control the pumps and also sends notifications and alerts to our SCADA system so we can be aware of things like power outages, high water levels, low water levels, things of that nature. This particular control module is original to the station and is in need of repair and replacement. So staff reached out to vendors asking for pricing on replacing the control module. We received 2 quotes, with Zao Technology being the apparent low bidder at $21,769. Staff recommends the purchase and installation of the control module from Zao Technology at a total cost of $21,769, as this replacement will help us better control one of these 3 100 horsepower pumps at the West Plant influent pump station.
All right, wonderful. Any questions for John? Ms. McCoy.
I have a question. The quotes look like they were less than $100 difference. I mean, I get if it was like 1,000 or more, but why did we go with this one versus the other one?
Zao Technology is also the vendor that has built and installed our entire SCADA system for the city. So we know it matches up really well with our existing system.
It makes really good sense. Anybody else? Thank you for that question. All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 16? All right, let's move on. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, H, City Manager. Item number 1, resurfacing 2 GDOT park and ride lots. Mr. Barber. I don't know what she's talking about. Did I skip something? Hold on. Did I skip something? Okay, go ahead.
It's payback.
It's something. I don't know what it is.
All right, back somewhere in the not too distant past, Councilman Montahan had been raising a question about whether we could do something with those 2 lots out on 61 in front of whatever that is, Wendy's and
Raising
McDonald's,
a question
maybe.
or raising a cane?
Raising a question.
I think it was a cane.
And so we reached out to GDOT, and after months and months and months, we were given an opportunity to partner with them in an agreement that would change the relationship about how the maintenance was done there. So the good and the bad of this is they're willing to give us a bunch of money to help us mill and top coat and strike these 2 lots, which, based on my conversations with the district engineer, they're never going to do on their own initiative, like ever, because the aesthetics of it just don't matter to them. And so they've offered to give us money, 70% of the cost up to a certain amount. But the downside is that we're going to be responsible to maintain those lots forever. But because it's on the gateway and because of our relationship with them, I think this is the way to go. It's not great, it's not perfect, but you can see what we got out there now. And what we have out there now is not acceptable, especially on the gateway. So I'm recommending that we approve this, and then we have an award recommended here. So what we're doing effectively, you've approved the agreement, right, with GDOT previously. So what we're doing here is we're awarding the bid to do the surfacing, and we'll submit that to GDOT. So there's still some paperwork we got to go through to get this done, but this is our recommendation.
So, I'll let you talk about it because I presume we'll put this on consent, but the reality is that doing nothing here is unacceptable. and it would continue to deteriorate and be worse as time goes on. This gives us some liability here, but in the long term, it makes this a better proposition for the city, and certainly for the aesthetics and even for the use there, which we will have some control of even the use there by maintaining this facility. Mr. Montana, do you want to weigh in on this?
No, I think last time we spoke about this, I was very excited that it took us a few years, but we got to this point. So I'm just looking forward to it. Like City Manager said, this is the gateway. I think probably at least 50%, if not more, of the visitors to our city come through that exit, and this is the first thing they see are deteriorated parking lots. So at least we can make the parking lots look nicer for now.
Yep. First impressions. Anybody else? Mr. Carter.
Okay, the cost on this for the low bidder is $262,872. That's what it's going to cost us to have it done. But you're saying the GDOT is going to refund 70% of that?
Right.
So the cost to us is only 30% of the 262.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So it's as you go basis. We do it, pay it, they send us money back. Okay.
Right. We get reimbursed.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Is there any objection to making this consent number 17? All right. H2, improvements to the intersection of Punkintown Road and Shoreline Parkway. Mr. Barber.
All right, this is another contract award. Mark Teal has helped us with this. We are in need of improvements at the intersection of Shoreline and Punkintown, or Shoreline and Mirror Lake Boulevard, at the entrance to the new Fuquay development. We need turn lanes. We need a new traffic light because of that. Bartow Paving is the recommended provider for an amount not to exceed roughly $1.3 million. The other bid amounts are shown in the paperwork. If you have any questions, I'll take a shot at them.
All right. Any questions, Mr. Barber? Okay. Any? Who? Oh, Mr. Carter.
Have we used Bartow paving in the past?
I have not.
Have we talked to some people that have used them?
We did. Got good references.
Okay.
All right. Ms. McCoy.
Is this just because it's all paving, is this just repaving from, or what are, because it doesn't look like it has a site plan or anything.
Right. So this is a renovation of the intersection. So we're going to add turn lanes, and we're going to replace the traffic light. So the current traffic light will only handle the lane structure that's there. But once you add turn lanes, then you got to use a different light.
So will the footprint it has now be widened?
Yes, because of the turn lanes.
Okay.
And it's going to widen to the Fuquay side.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
So,
Mr. Montahan.
So on the bid sheet, the ones that are blank, no bids and no checks, those folks, I guess, showed interest but didn't show up to the bid. Is that what that means? Okay.
Did not bid.
Okay.
Mr. Carter.
Okay. I think I read in here somewhere where we got to put up a temporary light there.
Right. It's coming up.
It's another item.
Okay. Seemed like it should have gone first, but okay.
Well, I was thinking that for a minute, and then I thought, well, wait a minute. Why would you talk about a temporary light if you hadn't approved the project? So I think he's probably got it in the right order. But okay, is there any objection to making this consent number 18? All right, let's go to H3, proposal to engage Falcon to redesign the intersection of Mirror Lake Connector and Cleghorn Street. All right, Mr. Barber.
All right, back in the day when we were talking more concretely about building a new road from downtown out to Mirror Lake, what I had envisioned was a new road that would sit roughly on top of the existing pavement where Darden now exists, and when it crossed Cleghorn, we would have a roundabout. And two things have happened subsequent to that sort of initial concept. One is we've gotten Falcon involved, and they've actually started trying to figure out what's the best way to route this road through the neighborhood to do the least dislocation. But we've also had an increase in our issues with Norfolk Southern blocking the crossing. And so one day it was like a little light came on, and we asked ourselves, well, if we're doing the construction of this roundabout and the train is blocking the crossing, how do people get in and out of that half of the neighborhood? Because the construction of the roundabout is going to not just be inconvenient, it's going to block the road, right? There'll be no way to get out to North Avenue, and if the train's there, there's no way to get out on the 78. And so I'm telling you, Falcon, like, they put all their best guys in a room one day for about 3 hours and looked at this, and they finally came to me and they just said, look, this is a great idea, but it just can't be built. And so now we're going back to maybe a cheaper but less desirable configuration. We're either going to have a four-way stop there, but we may have a traffic light, depending on what the traffic study tells us about projected left turns. I don't know how that's going to come out, but anyway, the good thing is that we can actually build either one of those. You can choke down to one lane and keep one lane open while you do that. So we're basically doing a completely new design, and we're going to change the way that we access the piece of land that we swapped with the apartment builder, so that we take into account where their driveway is going to come out of there, because it's coming up a hill right behind the housing authority, to make it also fit into this, because it's in an inconvenient place. It's really close to the intersection, and you don't typically want a intersection and then another road coming in to that road almost, in the intersection. So anyway, we still have some issues. I mean, that road is not proving to be easy to be built.
Right.
Or easy to build.
So what is before us and what you're proposing here is engaging with Falcon Designs.
Just design.
To
engineering.
To come up with another design to make this work, with all of the parameters that you just discussed, which, the disruptions to traffic there, the safety concerns, and of course to minimize the impact on parcels there. So, Council, do you have any questions for Tom on this item? Remember, this is an engagement for redesign. Ms. McCoy.
I know this is just design, and I warn my constituents all the time when it's just a design phase, but it says traffic study. So I guess my disconnect is, how are we going to know the traffic if the Mirror Lake connector's not even built yet?
It's a projection.
Okay. So they're not going to be out there studying.
Well, if we don't do it in this order, if we build the four-way and then we wait for experience and then we do a traffic study and it says, yeah, you should build a traffic signal, then you do both.
You've thrown good money after bad.
Maybe.
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of things have to be based on projections. I mean, it's just nobody has a crystal ball. If they do, please let us know. We'll take advantage.
Yeah, and
of that.
we may get into the very beginning of this, and the guys may look at it and say, "Look, there's no way you're going to have enough left turns to justify a light. Let's just design a four-way stop and get on with it."
Okay. That was my question.
All right.
Where are you talking about the four-way?
Marchman.
Where the new road's going to cross Cleghorn, so it'll be Dart, right there where right now where Dart and Cleghorn meet, where the new road's going to come in from the other side.
It's where they intersect.
Yeah, as I have said more than once, there's a reason that we're 200 years old and there's no road where this road is going. There is a reason, more than one reason.
Yeah, there's multiple reasons. Anybody else? All right. Any objection to making this consent number 19? All right.
This is just a study, right?
This is for redesign. All right. H4, resolution to authorize the bond attorney to proceed with the issuance of revenue bonds. Mr. Barber.
So we've been talking to the bond underwriter and the bond attorney, and we're looking out maybe 90 days in order to issue bonds for the TAD. They would like to go ahead and get started so that we have the opportunity to issue bonds before Thanksgiving, possibly do in October, maybe even a late September issue. I would like for this not to go on consent and be voted on tonight so that we know what's happening with the TAD and the IGAs and all that stuff. But I would like for us to go ahead and authorize the bond attorney and the underwriter to get going.
All right, any questions from council? Mr. Carter? Okay, anybody else?
So
Mr.
I don't,
Momptahan.
why can't, if we already put those other two items on consent, so why couldn't we put this on consent?
Well,
Just for
I
clarification.
think he just wants us to do this by itself, having read it out. Is that, I'll let you.
So if we don't approve the Node 5 zoning,
Mhm.
there's a possibility that the school system can terminate the IGA.
I see.
That would effectively kill the TAD, and there would not be TAD bonds.
I see.
All right, anybody else? All right, we're going to carry that item over into the regular session. Let's go to H5, which is ratification of proposal from HRC to modify the ADA ramp at the courthouse. Who's doing that? You doing that? Mr. Barber.
So the ramp in front of this building ends facing east into the road, and there's nothing to keep somebody, for instance, in a wheelchair from just going down the ramp over the sidewalk into the street. And we'd like to redesign that so that there's a landing and then a right turn so that you would empty from the ramp onto the area in front of the building instead of going out the side into North Carroll. I have already given HRC authorization to get started, but I'd like for y'all to ratify this because of the agreement and just the nature of the job. I wanted y'all to know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And plus this is SPLOST money, which I'd rather y'all approve each time we spend for something like this.
But this is $5,400.
Right.
Is that the total?
Just for the design.
Oh, that's for the design.
That's just for the design.
Okay.
Try to figure out how to
So
do
you'll be
it.
coming back for
Right.
the cost. All right, anybody got any questions on this? All right, any objection to making this consent number 20? All right, let's go to H6, ratification of engagement with Reedwick for temporary traffic light. Mr. Barber.
Okay, so this is a company that Mark Teal used when he was in Douglas County. We need someone to go into the Shoreline and Mirror Lake Boulevard or Punkintown intersection that exists today and take that light down and put up a wooden pole temporary light, because there's a big rock formation in that intersection on the west side of the road, and the rock protrudes out of the ground so far that it's literally up under the electric lines, and there's no way to get equipment on top of the rock and blast that rock with the electric lines right above it and the control panel, the big traffic signal control box and the pole like immediately adjacent to the rock. So we need to move it so we can go do that excavation. And this is the fee. This is not a design. This is a actual reconstruction of the traffic signal.
$16,800 budgeted and paid for out of Carroll SPLOST.
Right.
All right, is there any questions for Tom on this item? Ms. McCoy.
And I apologize, my memory fails me. So The electrical lines are above the rock, correct? Okay. I just was a little confused because we have underground utilities, and I was curious why it wasn't. Never mind. I'm not confused anymore.
Yeah, the rock, the lines, and the control box, and the pole, the mast, the pole for the traffic signal are all together.
All right. Anybody else?
So-
Mr. Moptahan.
This is just temporary, so that way, I guess, once that, the word just totally left me. That rock is blasted, thank you, Shirley. Once that rock is blasted, I guess we put back the existing signal until the construction that we already approved, or no?
No, they're gonna put up a temporary one, and then we're gonna, you just already approved redoing the whole intersection and putting in a new light.
So that's gonna stay up until the new one's installed, okay.
Okay. Any objection to making this consent number 21? All right. Let's get on to H7, to ratify an agreement with Falcon Design for a cultural resource survey. Tom?
So back some time ago, we gave Falcon the go-ahead to begin the design of our half of the Mirror Lake Connector. Subsequent to that, the Corps of Engineers has issued a new requirement for what they call a cultural resources survey. And so we need to have this done as part of that road design, and it's going to be an additional 13 grand to get that wetland permit, because we have to cross a creek.
All right. Any questions on this item? All right. If not, then any objection to making this consent number 22? Okay. Last item, H8, design sidewalk on West Montgomery.
All right, we've
Barber.
been working on a sidewalk crossing downtown on the south side of the railroad. I guess that's in between Candler and something. Anyway, I think it's at the end of the west end of the first block. So you have two issues. One is you got all this GDOT stuff that you have to do just to put in a crossing because of Highway 78. But then once we get on the north side of the pavement, there's no good way to get up the hill up to the level of the railroad. And so we're going to have to do some kind of a switchback kind of sidewalk there to make it ADA, because right now it's a really difficult climb if you've ever tried it. And so we're engaging Falcon to do all that GDOT stuff and all the Norfolk Southern stuff. This has got to be done in order for them to sign off on a plan to do that sidewalk.
Okay. Any questions for Tom on this item? All right. Is there any objection to making it consent number 23? Okay, that will be consent number 23. All right, so we're going to do something a little different today, and I really appreciate everyone, your patience, and everyone up here helping get through this consent agenda. This may well be the biggest one we've done, and certainly the quickest we've done it. To make room for more public comment time tonight, I have asked Jennifer to do the financial update here in this meeting, and I've asked Tom to do the city manager update as well. So I'll ask Jennifer to come up, and then we'll have Tom do the city manager update, and then we'll proceed like regular work session. Jennifer, good to see you.
Good afternoon. Good to see y'all. She is getting it pulled up. Shared files, presentations.
I apologize that you all didn't know that you were going to need to pull this up.
I should have
so,
told you to.
Sorry.
I apologize.
Are they ready with your stuff? Or you got yours right in front of you.
Okay, here we go.
All right, go ahead.
This is the financial update as of May of this year. You can see our cash Total cash is almost 4 million, 32.4 million. Is increase of 10%. The general fund has a increase of 2%, sitting at around 10 million. Water and sewer fund, don't let that concern you too much. We're just at 3 million, which is a decline of 70%. But if you look 2 more accounts down, the Mirror Lake connector, remember we moved around 5 million out of the water and sewer fund, 2 million out of the general fund to temporarily fund the Mirror Lake connector. So that will be reimbursed once we get everything set up with the TAD. You have then your 2015 Carroll Splost. Again, we're dwindling those funds down because we do have the new 2021 Splost sitting at 7 million, and of course the 2016 Douglas Splost at 4 million. Next month you will be seeing the 2022 Douglas Splost, because as you know, the 2016 has just ended and we're now collecting for the new Douglas Splost. On residential permits and taps, of course, this is just residential. So far, year to date, we through May, we have had 17 building permits, 31 water taps, and 30 sewer taps. Local option sales tax is still performing very well, month after month in comparison to the same time period last year. On the Carroll County side, we have just for the month of May, we brought in just under 195,000, which is around a 6% increase to the May of 2022. And the Douglas County sales tax is just under 160,000 for the month of May, which was a 5% increase compared to May of 2022. Hotel motel taxes are performing well from month to month. From October, November, and December, there was a 4% increase. January through March, there was a 4% increase. For the month of April, we experienced a 14% increase compared to the same time period last year. And in May was 11%. So in total, we've collected $226,000 compared to the same time period last year of $211,000, which is a 7% increase. Our business activity, as you know, we have water and sewer is one of our enterprise funds. Our revenue, in comparison to last year, you have to again remove, that's why that asterisk is in there. We did have the ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act funding of around $6 million. That's included in last year's revenues. It, of course, is not included in this one. But we're sitting at just at $6.8 million. And our expenditures are 7.3. So right now we have a loss of about $500,000. The departments, utility and sewer, have experienced a decrease compared to last year. Water department has experienced an increase compared to last year, and because it was substantial, I wanted to kind of lay out around $25,000 was salary and benefits. Professional services was $23,000 additional and more in professional services this year than we had last year. Maintenance and repair of buildings as additional $25,000. Water tank maintenance was additional $43,000, and additional water purchases of $79,000. Our other business activity enterprise fund is our sanitation and solid waste. We've collected $1.1 million in revenue and about the same in expenses. So we're sitting at a net income of around just under $48,000. Last but not least is our self-funded insurance. We are self-funded for our healthcare, or partially self-funded with reinsurance for any kind of catastrophe over an aggregate amount. Our bank balance is around $1.5 million, and each quarter from the beginning of the fiscal year, we have had savings. From the first quarter of the fiscal year of $173,000, second quarter of $143,000, and April and May, for just these 2 months, we've had about just under $60,000. So we've had total savings of $375,000, and that is the end. If you have any questions.
All right, council, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Carter?
On the one you just talked about, self-insured, I noticed that the savings are on a decrease, 173, 143. Now we're down to 59. So is this trend going to continue? Is there some reason for that?
Well, remember that April and May is just for 2 months. So depending on how we do in June, I probably should have separated that out so it doesn't like it's 3 months, 3 months, and 2 months. But
Okay.
yeah, so next month when I give the financial update, it will include a full quarter. So
So
it
you're
should
saying
be around.
the 58 should be a little higher if it was a third
Yes, sir.
month? Okay.
Yes.
But it still represents a decline.
Yes.
So historically, are we seeing that? Do we look at that over 2 quarters or something?
You know, it depends. You know, it depends on when the claims are paid, what claims are occurring in that month.
I get
you know?
that.
Mm-hmm.
But those do seem to be, I mean, even if you add in another month, I mean, it would still look like you're declining 30,000, and probably 30 or 40,000.
Right.
It's just something to keep an eye on.
Sure.
But the overall bank balance in the fund continues
healthy.
to be very healthy. In fact, it continues to increase. Mr.
Did,
Carter.
did you go back from the past years, since we've been in this a few years, and look at the cycle on this to see if this is comparative to the
Yeah, I
past?
will. I haven't, but I will.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that would be predictive, but it'd still be something to kind of take a look at. All right,
Sure.
anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And now, I saw the list, so that's why we're going to go ahead and get this out of the way, because very often we end up skipping it in the regular session because it's the last item. I want to go ahead and do this today. So go ahead, Mr. Barber.
So today is July the 11th, and yesterday was my 6th anniversary here.
Yay!
And so I was thinking about, just where we were and what we were trying to do and what we've accomplished and what we still have to do. And we talk about a lot of the pieces of what we're doing, but we don't talk about sort of the big picture of where were we and what were we trying to do and where we trying to get to. One of the things that we have probably spent maybe the most time on is our water and sewer system, and how do we get to water independence one day? Is it possible? Is it practical? And we have spent a significant amount of money on engineers who have looked at alternative raw water sources to no avail. And we're now down to really one option for water independence, and that would be to get a permit to do what's called indirect potable reuse. No one in the state has been given a permit to do this yet. The guidelines were issued, I think, in March of 21, and we were the first applicant with EPD to do this. And we are still years away from an answer to our permit application. We're going to have to do a year's worth of sampling just to get to the next step. So it's a very long, drawn-out process, but the mayor and I have agreed that if we cannot figure out a way to generate at least 3 million gallons a day of raw water, that we can't come to y'all and recommend a new water plant. So our little water plant now is 60 plus years old, and it's making about 1.4 million gallons a day out of about 2 million a day that we use. So we're buying, 600,000 a day. We're making 1.4 million out of 2. Strategically, this issue is the biggest strategic initiative that we have is, can we become independent? Because if we can't, it may be one day down the road we say, well, let's just get out of the water business. And we quit making water altogether, and we just become a captive customer, and we just pay whatever somebody wants, which I hate the thought of that. So there's a big difference between water independence and basically having no say in what you pay or what your customers pay. And that's a significant difference for the future of Villa Rica, whether we can ever get there. Even if it takes us 10 years and costs us $50 million to do it, in the long run, being independent, I think, is worth it. So that's maybe the most significant thing that we've worked on. We talked early about another issue, and that was if the water and the sewer system weren't in good shape, you know, what were our options? And really the two options were, well, we just don't really do anything and we just raise the rates. You know, if we need money, we just raise the rates. Or the alternative is we try to grow our way out of it. We add customers, we spread the debt over more people, and we keep the rates at a reasonable level. And that was the course that we adopted even back in 17 when I first got here. So we've done small water and sewer rate increases almost every year that I've been here, trying to make up for the lack of customer base, which we're trying to attract and develop now, and also to get ready for what we know is coming, which is a big increase in the price we pay for water. So that 600,000 gallons that we buy is only about roughly $2.50 a thousand. And we've been in that contract for over 18 years. It's got less than 2 years to go. And when that contract's up, our rate will almost double. And so we've been trying to get ready for that by doing these smaller annual increases. And we'll need to do that in 24 and in 25 as we get near the end of this contract. So we've made progress, we've eliminated a lot of options, and we're now in the second year of probably a 10-year process of trying to get this permit. 10 years to get this permit that we've applied for. The second thing I think that has been sort of uppermost in our thinking has involved road improvements, road construction, resurfacing, or whatever. Started out with the North Bypass. That was at least a 1998 project that Georgia DOT has worked on. And when I got here, I guess in my first year, we were informed that the money had been pulled. And so what was going to be a 2018 project became a 2026 project. And we fussed, and it became a 2024 project. And then we fussed, and it became a 2022 project. And sure enough, in 2022, the project was bid, and they started doing clearing. So you can go out there now and see that they're actually starting to build the bypass. We're looking at a 2025 construction date, but that's, again, strategically just a huge project for Villa Rica. The immediate benefit being that we'll reroute Highway 61 and potentially move part of the truck traffic out of downtown onto Industrial Boulevard and the bypass and out of the front of this building and Cowboys and everything that's right here in this block. So that's a biggie. The second road improvement that we've talked about is what I call the Mirror Lake Connector. Some people call it the East Side Connector. We haven't officially named it, but it's the idea that we would somehow connect downtown to Mirror Lake in a way that we could unify the community, add golf cart and walking trail, and make us more of a cohesive community, whereas now it feels to me like Mirror Lake is separated from the original Villa Rica at the Punkintown Road mark. So we looked at that. We started talking about a TAD, and I don't know if everybody here remembers this, but we started working on a TAD in the fall of 17. And we went to the legislature in January of 18. We went to referendum in November of 18, started talking to the county, I guess, in the fall of 17, started talking to the school system in the spring of 18, and we're just about there. And we haven't had a parade and we haven't had a celebration, but if we pull this off, I'm telling you, we've done something. The first TAD in West Georgia, we're doing a TAD outside of Atlanta, and most of the, the successful TADs in Georgia have been in Metro Atlanta. I mean, we will really have done something. And in the process, it has greatly enhanced, I think, our working relationship with both the school system and the county. So those relationships have changed for the better. And as I said earlier, there's a reason there's no road there, but we're trying our best to figure out how to get something in there that makes this work. And we can already see the significant economic benefit to the community with the apartments on Cleghorn, the Fuquay development, the development north of that up near the hospital. It's going to be a significant change and improvement for the community. Now, what's the alternative if we didn't do that? Without this TAD and without that road, that land might very well sit vacant forever. Because without some kind of stimulus on our part, I don't believe you would have ever seen Fuquay come here, or the development on Cleghorn, or the one that's proposed behind Olive Tree. The landowner that Fuquay dealt with has had that property for 55 years. So what we've done is really, really significant in the context of our history. The school system relationship has developed, and one of the things that's developed with that is our understanding of where they are strategically. One of the things that we've talked about is how several of our schools, we have 7 schools in our cluster, several of them are at capacity, most significantly the high school. And the school system needs to build additional classroom space. They just finished the building at Villa Rica Elementary. They're planning one for Glanton Heinzman, I think at Ithaca, at the high school. So, I mean, they see the issue. They realize what's going on in Villa Rica, and we have a chance to work with them. One of the other things that's come out of this interaction over the TAD with them is I think that they are now able to articulate among themselves when they're planning what's a good development for them and what's not a good development for them. So they can now say that if Villa Rica builds industrial, that's a good thing for the school system. No kids, property tax, right? They can also look at Villa Rica and say, if Villa Rica builds commercial, that's a good thing for the school system. No kids, property tax, splost, right? They can also look at Villa Rica on the residential side and differentiate between what stresses them and what benefits them. And in particular, what really benefits them on the residential side is age restricted that's also rental. So why is that? Well, the county, Carroll County schools have a 62-year exemption on ad valorem. So once you hit 62, if you're a property owner, you're not paying school taxes anymore on ad valorem. But if it's a rental community, the developer pays ad valorem forever. And if everybody in there is 100 years old, it doesn't matter. They're still generating ad valorem. So and they now look at Billerica and realize that if we build 55 and up rental, they get relatively no kids, ad valorem, regardless of the age issue, right? And in that case, you're also getting additional shoppers, right, who are going to shop in the community, which is East Bloss. So I think that our interaction with them has helped us in our relationship with them, and it's helped them realize that that taking a no growth position with Villarica is unwarranted. But they also realize that not every kind of growth in Villarica is ideal for them, that some is better than others, and they are now able to say that to themselves, you know, with a clear understanding. And what's the alternative to what we've done with the school system? Trailers. That's the alternative. If we don't help them with their capital requirements, we're going to get trailers. And we've said in meetings multiple times that we don't believe we can have a great Villarica without a great school system. And you don't base a great school system on trailers. So we're in this together. We may not like it. They may not like it sometimes, but Villarica and the school system are joined at the hip. And if we're going to become great, we've got to help them become great and vice versa. We've also developed a better relationship with the county, with Carroll County in particular, and specifically in regard to the provision of fire services. We all know that we have an old fire station on Industrial, and it's going to be replaced by a new station at the old Georgia State Patrol site across the street from Jefferson's. We also have been told that there are at least some desires on their part to eventually locate a new station out on the northeast side of town. That requires money. New building, new equipment, expensive new equipment, and then big operating expenses. So you're talking about 3 shifts, 24 on, 48 off at each station you build. So in order for us to have the kind of coverage that we need, we've got to partner with the county too. And so in the TAD, we have offered to help them with the infrastructure cost associated with the new fire station at 78 and South Street. We need a strong fire service, not so much because we have fires very often, but that's where our emergency response comes from, and we need that to be strong and effective. There's other things that we can talk about as we go forward with this, but we recently, Councilmember Marchman and I recently attended a meeting where we talked to some folks about some of the development that's going on, and it reminded me again of sort of my philosophy about how I approach some of this, because I know that we're not going to make everybody happy. And I have jokingly said that my goal is to make everybody equally unhappy. And I think I'm probably doing okay with that, because everybody seems to be unhappy with me at one point or another pretty frequently. But what we're trying to do isn't about today so much as it is 10 years from now and 20 years from now and even farther. And I think that we're doing things that nobody's particularly going to pay attention to, but the staff that we've built, the training that we're doing, the infrastructure that we have improved, the new construction that we've done. I mean, we are moving in the direction that I think will give us a foundation, so that if we do grow like we're talking about, where we have thousands of new units and potentially even 10,000 new residents, that we will be able to handle that growth, and then all the ancillary growth that's going to come from that. Because what all this residential development is going to do is attract commercial development. And hopefully at some point we find a way to do a second industrial park, and we get industrial development in addition to that. So that's the big picture to me. I know we're not making everybody happy. I know that some things are absolutely going to get worse before they get better. We're going to add more traffic before we fix more roads. We're going to have struggles with water and sewer. We're going to continue to work on those. We need a new city hall. Our staff are spread out all over everywhere, and it would be great to get them all back into one building. I sit now on Monday mornings with a staff team. I only supervise 4 department heads now, and Sarah's working with everybody else. And 2 things that I've observed in that: one is, it's really nice when I'm trying to keep up with all this stuff that I'm working with 4 people who don't need supervising. You know, we've got really, really capable department heads. And the other thing I was thinking about is, when I got into this job, and, you know, the first day with Pete, you know, he starts laying into me with all the problems that existed back in 2017. I can remember saying to people how nice it was that even with all the craziness that went on with water and sewer, that we had a police department that I didn't have to think about. And we went through COVID, and we went through all the Ferguson and Baltimore and George Floyd and all that stuff, and we lost a lot of officers at one point, and had, I want to say, 14 openings at one time. That we've rebounded from that and gotten to the point now where we just have a handful of openings again. And just having a police department here that allows me to focus on economic development and roads and water and sewer has been just a great relief to me. And then having Sarah here to supervise everybody else has also just been wonderful. So I'll be glad to take some questions on this, but where we're headed now is not going to be easy for us, and it's not going to be easy for the community. And what we've set ourselves up for now is probably something closer to a 10-year bond issue, because the mayor was able to get a deal cut with the county on the TAD. So I am more hopeful for where we are today than any time since I've been here. even though we have issues and we got challenges, you know, we've had the issue with the targets and everything that came from that. And we've got issues with roads and Punkintown and it being safe. You know, it's not like we're done, but we're making progress. I think we're working on the right things. And David, you got anything you want to add to that? Because I'm sure there's some more that I left out.
No, I have been taking notes here of everything, and I can't think of anything additional to add to what you've said. And I concur with you that I think progress is being made. You just can't let it stop.
All right. Council, you're on. You got any questions for him? You're ready to move on? Ms. McCoy.
Hey, I might be channeling my inner Leslie here, but as you were talking about the roads and progress and everything going on, but maybe even prior to 6 years ago, shouldn't things like these roads that are in our agenda today, shouldn't they have, and I know it was a different economic time, but shouldn't those things have been considered back then? And I'm not disagreeing, because water and sewer is very important. I think there's a quote from Walt Disney when he built Disneyland that he had the choice of water fountains or toilets, and his comment to the contractors was they can buy water, they can't pee in the street. But so I understand that's important, but I'm just bringing that point up that a lot of this should have been done to prepare for this growth, instead of like the growth is coming and now we're all going to be kind of squished a little bit. And I'm not saying it's not needed, the infrastructure's not needed. I'm just saying that like maybe prior people and not us should have done this a while ago. That's my comment.
You know, I could spend all day talking about that, but I'm not going to. I mean, the fact of the matter is, what we're doing today, 5 years from now, if we didn't do it, that same comment could be made. The fact is, we know that we have been hard at work, frankly, since 2017, making really tough decisions and knowing that we weren't going to make everybody happy. We decided early on that if we thought we were going to make everybody happy, we should be selling ice cream, because everybody likes ice cream, but they don't like what we do, especially when it affects them, very close to home. But I've tried to say, even looking back, that the folks in these jobs, your job, these jobs, then made the best decisions they could at the time, given the circumstances. But we have, since 2017, really worked hard to lay out a strategy to build this foundation and prepare for what we knew was coming, what they knew was coming really in 2005 and 6. Because even back then, they were projecting population numbers that meet what we're looking at today. But because of the downturn in 08 and 09 and 10, when everything stopped, there was this sort of breath of relief that said, okay, well, maybe that's not going to happen. Well, not only is it going to happen, it's going to happen on the same schedule, just with this break. Imagine what would have happened if the economy had not slowed down. So we have to continue on this path. We can't rest, because at the end of the day, there is nothing that is going to slow this. Where we are sitting is going to be impacted by growth all around us. We could pretend to slam the door, close the door, and say no more, which we couldn't do anyway. But let's say that you could. The growth that's going on around us is necessarily increasing traffic through this city, east, west, north, and south, every single day. We didn't do a thing on Punkintown Road for 10 years. We didn't put one thing over there, but the traffic steadily increased, and it has steadily become more of a problem. We've been dealing with lawsuits over there. We don't have a choice. We can't push this off to the next group. Anybody else want to comment on Tom's report? That's probably good, because if you ask another question, I might have something else to say even longer. All right. We have now, I want to do public comments now, and then we will put together the consent agenda. I have a list here of folks who have signed up for public comments. And after I go through this list, if there are still folks who did not sign up who would like to speak, I'll be happy to recognize you for that. The way this process works is that we give you 3 minutes to speak. We generally do not respond. That's your 3 minutes. We don't engage back and forth. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments on a professional level. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you'll be leaving. Only one person speaking at a time, and please, no comments from the audience. First up, Greg Roberts. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
If you would come up, give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor and Council and
Yes, sir.
staff. Good meetings. First time I've came to the city of Villa Rica meeting.
Welcome.
Just a couple of things in relation to the intersection, and I guess this is to the city manager more so, or it's something I can email exchange with the city manager and he can let me know, or Ms. McCoy. But for Shoreline Drive, is it anything in the works for resurfacing? It's starting to show a lot of wear, particularly down the hill as you're approaching the wooden bridge over there. There's a lot of cracking. I guess it could get some crack seal work done, but it's probably pushing 20 years old, so it's at the top end of its life cycle. So I wasn't sure if that was a part of any long-term plan. And then a couple of weird little things here. So Tyson Road, over near where the fire station is, so the Douglas County DOT, and I was kind of shocked by it when it happened, they paved their little section about 100 yards short of the fire station. So I'm assuming that remaining section is City of Villa Rica. And there's several places between the top of that hill and over to Connors that people are literally driving on the wrong side of the road. I know they shouldn't. I may or may not have done it. But when I'm in my Mustang, it just beats it to death. When I'm in my truck, it's no problem. I can take it. But just putting that on the radar screen, I know it's there, but and I know Douglas County didn't do that to create any problems for the city, but I'm sure a lot of citizens who have not asked about it are wondering why you guys paved 200 yards and stopped, and I realized it was not you, but anyway. And then the intersection of Stockmar at 61. Now, I know that's a GDOT intersection, but it's a part of the City of Villa Rica project. But I actually went to Costco last night in my Mustang, and I was wondering why the car in front of me was not going. When they finally went, I realized they couldn't see past the weeds that are growing up along the construction area. I know you can't take a bush hog down there. I don't know how you're going to do it. Maybe a side cutter, maybe some weed eaters, community service or something. But the weeds have gotten up about 3-4 feet, and if you're in a car at least as low as a Mustang, you're just not seeing around it. And so I thought I'd make those comments. And I know you guys are dealing with a lot of issues, but you're 40 minutes from downtown Atlanta. It's coming to Temple. It's coming to Bremen. When there's an interstate that close to a major city, it's coming. And just, I would hope the council, even though you do not have the funds to do it, I hope you don't let it fall off your radar screen. The bridge over the railroad track on Mirror Lake, it will only accommodate about 3 lanes of traffic. So at some point in time, it's not going to work. And then the I-20 Liberty Road Bridge, it's a 3-lane wide road. It's at some point in time, it's not going to work.
All right, I appreciate your comments. And like I said, we don't typically respond. I'll go ahead and have you head back to your seat, but I do want to make some comments while you're doing that. You make some really good points, and it's clear to me that you drive a Mustang. And I may or may not drive a Mustang as well, but I have the one that is all electric. So my son has the one that is the GT. So he calls my Mustang the fake one. But the road sections you're talking about on Tyus, the intersection at Stockmar, all of these are part of the annual funding projects, and they get prioritized through the city. And some want to get back with you, make sure that's getting done, especially with regard to being able to see down at the intersection of Stockbar and 61. All right, next up, Terrence Sinkfield. Mr. Sinkfield? Okay, he couldn't. All right, Tracy Evans. Come on up here, ma'am. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Evans, and I'm talking on behalf of my sister, Dolores Evans. She's located at 380 Darden Street. She doesn't talk. She's too shy to
That's
speak
okay.
in public.
Sure.
And so I'm talking on her behalf. And as the city manager has expressed the desire for the city to continue the road off Cleghorn Street straight through Darden Street. She lives there on Darden Street, and has expressed her desire not to sell. And I know it's for the purpose of, as you say, improvement. He's already expressed walking trails, golf cart lanes, things that the people in Cleghorn Street and Darden Street and Anderson Street don't use. They're simple people, simple folks, simple living. And I understand growth. I understand that that every place has to grow eventually. They have expressed their desire not to sell, and several of them that's back there as well. It may get into a point of, it may get down to eminent domain. I'm not sure yet, but they have expressed that they would do what's in the best interest of them if it get there. But I did express to Mr. Barber at the meeting that they had on Thursday of last week that road number 3 on this proposed plan is more feasible. Because it just affects only 2 areas, and unfortunately, both of those areas are also relatives of mine. But instead of affecting 11 houses, it's only affecting 2 areas. And I know it may be more rocky, but the area behind these houses, there's creeks. So I know that the ground, the area is very dense, and the ground is very, very, very saturated. You can slide down the hill just walking. And it is a major hill there, and I understand that, but they have expressed, and they will, most of them said that they will be back tonight, but they have expressed their desire not to sell. My sister has been there her entire life. Her family has been there their entire life. I know it's nobody else's history, but it's their history. Their father was a World War II veteran, and he had that house built and has lived there. And it may not be the most desirable area, but it's their area, and they own those houses. They do not want to go to renting and mortgage payments because they're a low-income family. And most of the area there is a low-income area, but they, all except for one area, they keep their houses outside, the yards nice and neat. And so they have expressed a desire not to move there. And I hope when you do that, that you take that into consideration of their finances as well. And I know you're doing what's in the best interest of the city, but they are part of the city. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, and you are a great spokesman for somebody, especially somebody who's shy. You did real well on that.
It was her who's shy. I've been a secretary.
Well, no, I mean, you're speaking for her. You did really good. Okay, next up, Tanisha McDaniel. Come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Tanisha McDaniel. I live on 510 Russell Street, but I'm coming for Darden Street as well. That's my grandmother's house. She lived there. She died at 97 years old. That's all we know. That's all we ever known. And Darden Street is a part of the Villa Rica black community. And if y'all come there and tell road and make them sell their houses, where's the black community gonna be then? That's all we ever known. And for a road for Mirror Lake to go downtown, when you're gonna build all this stuff in Mirror Lake, they don't need to come downtown. Y'all building everything in Mirror Lake, so why would you need a road to go downtown? We've lived there all our lives. My aunts are on Social Security and they can't afford to move. Y'all not gonna offer enough money for them to start over. Not at age 70, 80. It's too much. And he said that y'all been talking about this for 6 years and we just learned about it Thursday. And I asked, did you never think to come and knock on the door and ask the residents what their outcome or what would happen to them or what they think about their area, he said he didn't have to. That was his answer. I don't have to. But yes, you do. Because we've lived there our whole life, and you're trying to destroy the black community. Not just the road. This is the black community. It's been here forever. So yeah, we feel some type of way. And we'll fight teeth and nails to keep our family's property. It's paid for, and we don't have money to start over. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I don't have anybody else on the list. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go back to the Punkintown Road at Highway 61.
Oh, yeah. Let's get your name and address.
Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive, Villa Rica.
All right, go ahead.
The concerns with that intersection have not changed from when the city wanted to obtain that property and the plan was presented by Mark Teal's group to a independent contractor obtaining that and doing what he wants. The concerns are the same. It isn't the commercial. It isn't the attached single family. It's the spur. In both Mark Teal's proposal and in this proposal, there's a spur there that virtually completes the east bypass. You know, Villa Rica would have been better off if we'd let GDOT do the east bypass. You still have the same number of people upset, but they wouldn't be upset at you. They'd be upset at GDOT. And GDOT would pay for it. We wouldn't have to pay, what, $14 million now for Punkintown? It's up higher. So think of what we could do with those $14 million plus somewhere else in the city if GDOT paid for it, and you get the same thing that you want now, and the people would be mad at somebody else. I haven't heard a compelling argument for that spur. There may be one, but I haven't heard it. And I haven't heard whether the city is going to aggressively control truck traffic off on that spur into Punkintown Mirror Lake Boulevard. So that should be something that the city is willing to commit to. Are you going to commit to aggressively controlling vehicles over 6 wheels like you're trying to do now? Or is that just going to go by the wayside? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right. I will reserve more comments till tonight, but I want to assure folks that every effort is being made with regard to that East Side connector to travel a route that impacts the least number of properties. But I'll talk more about that tonight. I'm going to close public comments here, and I want everyone to know that we will start out tonight again after some regular order business, and we will allow public comments again tonight. So if you change your mind and you do want to speak tonight, you'll have that opportunity. I've done my best to clear the agenda to make room for public comments tonight, because that is a critical part of what we do here. Representing the people and allowing them to have their voices heard, and we will make sure that happens again tonight. All right, Madam Clerk, Council, I want to review the agenda for the consent agenda, and when I am done, if anyone has an objection or hears anything different, I'll hear that at the end, but let me get through this first. Consent item number 1, qualifying for the November 2023 election. Consent number 2, adoption of pilot payment in lieu of taxes agreement related to Walton Communities project with Villa Rica Housing Authority. Consent number 3, abandonment and transfer of Walnut Drive to Villa Rica Housing Authority. Consent number 4, settlement of opioid litigation with Publix Corporation. Consent number 5, approval of intergovernmental agreement with Carroll County for the East Side TAD. Consent number 6, Sequoia Golf Mirror Lake LLC doing business as Mirror Lake Golf Club, alcohol license permit agent change request. Consent number 7 is the structural inspection of 315 Main Street, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. Consent number 8, appointment of 2 new members to the Downtown Development Authority. I think we gave you those names earlier, so please include that in the line. Consent number 9, reappointment of Michael Young to the Downtown Development Authority. Consent number 10, approve workers' compensation renewal. Consent number 11, July is Parks and Recreation Month. This will be a proclamation tonight. Please have that ready. Consent number 12, Recreation Advisory Commission appointment. Consent number 13, purchase of 2 flock cameras. Consent number 14, grant for 5 flock cameras. Consent number 15, police K-9. Consent number 16, West Plant Control Module replacement. Consent number 17, resurfacing of 2 GDOT park and ride lots. Consent number 18, improvements to intersection of Punkintown Road and Shoreline Parkway. Consent number 19, proposal to engage Falcon Designs to redesign the intersection of Mirror Lake Connector and Cleghorn Street. Consent number 20, ratification of proposal from HRC to modify the ADA ramp at the courthouse. Consent number 21, ratification of engagement with Reedwick for temporary traffic light. Consent number 22, to ratify an agreement with Falcon Design for a cultural resource survey. And consent number 23 is the design for sidewalk on West Montgomery. Did anybody have any objections or hear anything differently? All right, that'll be the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please prepare it. Mr. Barber, you have anything? Mr. Macklin?
No, nothing further.
Okay. All right, with that.